Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to another story sharing video. Today we're talking about the Sorceress. Now some of you may know that I've already talked about the Sorceress previously in a different story sharing video, but I wanted to make a new one because the story has kind of been taking a few new turns for me. It's kind of been evolving, and I'd like to talk about those changes and what I've been doing with it. So let's not waste any time, let's get right into it. So for those who are unaware or have not seen the original Sorceress video, I want to basically share what it's about. Years ago, I wrote a story called Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis was the story of a young man named Chase who woke up one morning turned into a female. He doesn't know why, he wants to find out why, and he wants to turn back. So he and his parents are rushing to try to find a solution, but while they're doing that, he begins to learn about the way other people view him because he pretends to be his own cousin and people talk to him not knowing who he is, basically he starts to learn about the way people see him, the way he's always been viewed, the way he views himself, what his parents always wanted out of him. It's very much a learning experience. He starts to learn more about himself, about the world, about the way he stands, and so that way when he does turn back, he has a better understanding and appreciation of what he had versus where he can go. The idea of the story was it was supposed to be kind of not really a coming of age story, but something along that line where he begins to learn more about himself. You can have a lot of drama, a lot of comedy. There are some great ideas that I really wanted to create in this story. The problem was that the story essentially failed. Now, not because it wasn't popular. It was very popular. In fact, I'd argue it was probably my most popular story that I've ever written, but for all the wrong reasons. While I wanted the story to be an interesting character study, many people saw it as fetish material. I was getting questions about whether or not Chase would be lesbian, whether he could get pregnant, whether he would have sex with someone, whether he would go gay. I didn't want any of that. That was not the goal of the story. I was shocked by the way people were treating the story. And so, to save the story, in my mind, I wanted to steer it deliberately in a direction to avoid all that crap. Because I wanted it clear. Chase will turn back. He's not staying this way. He's not doing any of that stuff. But in doing that, I gave away a lot of secrets that I wanted to keep hidden and leave up to interpretation. I started sabotaging the story, and eventually I just felt it ran into the ground, and I just couldn't work on it anymore. I couldn't stand it anymore. I was so upset. I was very sad that Metamorphosis failed. I still wanted to retry, and you can see me retry the concept in several other stories that I've worked on, but nothing has ever worked. I've never felt like I've truly captured what I wanted to do, and I kind of abandoned the idea of the project. But then one day I was talking to a buddy of mine who said, you know, man, you keep trying to recreate it based on what audience expectation is. Why don't you just recreate it in your own way? Why don't you just approach it your own style, your own way? Stop trying to force it, just let it come naturally. So I decided to retry, and thus I got the Sorceress. And so far, I'm on chapter 15 of the Sorceress, and it seems to be doing pretty well. So now we can get into the plot of the Sorceress. You have a young man named Alex who has been taking care of an elderly woman named Miss Faye for a few years, who lives out by herself in the mountains. She is a widow, she has no husband to take care of her, she's very old, and all he does is come by to help her with house chores and stuff like that. It's something he likes to do because he doesn't really care for the college-age kids his age. You know, he doesn't really want to hang out with them. They're kind of crazy. There are a lot of drug users and drinkers, and he's not all about that party scene. Well, Miss Faye really likes that he's always there to help her out, and one day she invites him over to have a serious conversation. She wants to leave her house to him when she passes away. He's not sure he deserves it, but he appreciates the gesture. But along with the house comes a few things. The title of Coven Sorceress. Now, what does that mean? It turns out that Miss Faye is part of a coven of sorceresses who, for a long, long time, all the way back probably up to the 11th century, their job has been to protect the world from supernatural and extraterrestrial threats. According to what she said, long, long time ago, some kind of alien threat attacked Earth, and the sorceresses were given power to hold them off. Now they continue to protect the world and humanity from these kind of threats. And there always has to be a certain number of sorcerers coven at any time, and before one can die, they have to pass on their power to someone else, and she has chosen Alex to do that. Alex thinks she's crazy and doesn't want anything to do with it. But when she starts to realize, you know what, I shouldn't have offered, it was wrong of me, he feels bad for her and signs the contract to humor her, not realizing anything would happen. But of course it does. Unfortunately, the rule is that only women can be sorceresses, so the magic makes him a woman. He doesn't like it. He's not fond of it. This isn't something that he wanted. But as he gains the power and he begins to learn how to use this power, Miss Faye starts to fade away, making him realize that once she's gone, this is his. This power is his, This cabin is his, and he starts to meet other Coven sorceresses and learns they're not too thrilled with having him as part of the Coven. Along the way, though, we also learn that there is an underlying threat that is rising up, and Alex may be called upon quicker than he thinks to have to answer to it, even though he hasn't fully grasped his powers or his place in the world yet. There's a lot of stuff that I'm exploring this, and what I've basically given you is a very, very short synopsis. There's a lot in it, like an old friend who he meets up with who happens to be a police officer, and they end up working closely together to try to figure out what this big threat is. There's a guy who wants to rise up and overthrow the Coven. There's lots of stuff there. I've really been enjoying exploring this story. I think the biggest thing that I like about this story so far is the way that I've approached the magic system in this. In a lot of like magic stuff like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or stuff like that, you have like magic words and stuff like that. In this, I said there's no magic words. It is all willpower. It is basically a sorceress's ability is to literally have a mind over matter kind of thing. They can use their willpower to basically impact the physical world around them. So they can basically imbue their will, force their will upon something or someone, and force them to act, behave, or do several things. And Hannah even got involved in the story. She likes the story concept. She did an initial design of Alex turned Ashlyn and his pet cat, Jinx, who later can turn into a human form. She was very helpful with the design, and then once I got hold of an AI art generator, I tried making some new designs to see how she would look later on down the road. We had some fun discussing different ideas and directions the story could go. But once again, I want to stress that my goal here is not to go down the route of fetishization. That was never the goal or purpose. In fact, I don't have any plans of Ashlyn getting romantically involved with anyone of any kind. The goal here was to tell a story from a unique perspective. Now, someone asked me the last time I made a video about the Sorceress, why did it have to involve Alex becoming Ashlyn? Couldn't you have just had a girl named Ashlyn accepting the power? There was a reason for it. For one thing, I did want to explore the themes that I talked about in Metamorphosis of out-of-body experiences and understanding the differences in how people are treated based on their sex. But the other reason was because I wanted to explore that concept of the Coven having a reaction to this guy turned witch. And I thought that would be a very fun experience. I thought that what I would explore there is the idea of tradition. It's very interesting. You think all the time, you hear this all the time, you hear about people talking about, oh, you know, a patriarchal society, a society ruled by men, for men, and women, you know, they're just kind of the second class. In this, I literally flipped that on its head. The Coven, which is the supreme magical authority in the world of witches and wizards, are all made up of women. They are required to all be women, to the point that even if a guy accepts the role of a coven sorceress, they will become a woman to meet that role. This is so outlandish for them that a guy would accept this role that they absolutely hate him and want to sabotage him as he's trying to learn and grow and become a better sorceress to fulfill his duty. And wouldn't that be the ultimate irony? These people who hold fast to this idea that we need to protect our way of life and protect sorcery and protect humanity, they would sabotage their own job just to hold fast to tradition. I thought that'd be something very interesting to explore, and there are still more things that I want to do with this story. It's been a lot of fun to write. I've enjoyed kind of exploring it and just playing around with it. And there's more stories like it to come. I hope you guys enjoyed talking about this. If I could give any advice that I learned from this story in terms of writing it, again, I think it's don't give up on a concept just because your first time doesn't work. Like I said, Metamorphosis was a concept that I really wanted to explore, but because people took it the wrong way, I sabotaged the story and thought, okay, failed experiment, I can never try this again. But I really appreciate my buddy Aaron for, basically conking me on the head and saying, dude, just because it didn't work that time doesn't mean it can't work at all. You just got to do it for you again, You can't do it because of what you expect your audience to see. You got to do it because it's what you want to write. And I think that's a very important thing to remember when you're writing. Always remember, write what you want to write, even if no one else wants to read it. And I don't think many people have read the Sorceress story yet, but if you have the time to read it, check it out, or I might read it in one of my chill and read streams on the Raven's Roost. We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.